Right after the funeral of my father-in-law, I noticed my husband, Ted, who had dressed rather youthfully and meticulously for the occasion, and then, hello, a woman in a short dress above the knee, wearing a light-colored outfit. What? You suddenly felt like seeing your own father, doesn't seem like it. I wouldn't do such a thing, you know. I see, then, what are you here for? And who is this person? She's my girlfriend. We're getting married, so let's get a divorce. I'll pay you alimony. There's not a penny left, though? What? Ted thought he would inherit all of his father's assets, but actually, I am Lucy. After graduating from junior college, I have worked as a preschool teacher for 25 years. I lost my parents in an accident during my first year working. And the only reliable person left was Ted, my husband of 20 years, and our son named Kevin. Ted was a teacher at an elementary school, and I had been living busy lives, working together. When Kevin turned 20, he moved to a dormitory near his university campus, citing the distance from the campus as a reason, so now it was just Ted and I living together. Our marriage was neither particularly good nor bad. We never had big arguments. But due to our busy lives, our relationship wasn't very demanding either. However, I found this distance between us comfortable, and on days off, Ted would take care of and adore our child, allowing us to live peacefully despite our busy schedules. Ted had lost his mother early and was raised by his father. Unusually for those times, his father never remarried, worked hard, and managed both housework and child-rearing on his own. When Kevin was born, his father was overjoyed. "It's going to be lively now," he said with a smile as he held Kevin, making me feel relieved. At that time, I had already lost my parents, so his words reminded me of them. And it felt as if they were also celebrating with us. Ted's father often told stories about Ted's childhood. Right after Ted was born, my wife seemed to struggle a lot. She might have been what you call postpartum depression now. When Ted cried, she often cried with him. So, I had to take care of him, feeding him milk. It was tough. Was Ted a child who cried a lot? Not really. Compared to my friends' children, he didn't cry much, but once he started, he wouldn't stop easily. It was tough on my wife. I see. But over time, my wife got better, and seeing Ted walk quickly, we both used to joke that this kid is a genius. As his father reminisced about the past, his eyes narrowed as if cherishing those times. I wondered if Ted would look back at our current times the same way in the future, which warmed my heart. However, that was not the case. "Enough with the old stories," said Ted as he took Kevin away from his father. "It's time to feed him milk and put him to sleep, so you should go home." I was surprised by Ted's cold tone. When we were dating, they seemed like a close father and son. And even at dinners arranged to introduce me, they joked around with each other. I couldn't understand why Ted would say such things. I see. Maybe it's time for me to head back home then. Thank you for everything today, Lucy. His father lightly laughed and went home. Seeing his lonely figure, I approached Ted, who was preparing the milk. "Hey, you don't need to be so harsh to your father. He's so happy to see us. Did you have Kevin for my father's sake?" "What are you talking about?" "Of course not. Then there's no need to worry about it." "Hey, why are you in such a bad mood?" "It's nothing. You're just misunderstanding, Lucy." Ted said that, but I couldn't help but feel differently. I feel like this will lead to a falling out between them. and my unpleasant premonition came true. Following that event, Ted became colder towards his father, and perhaps because of that, his father seemed uncomfortable. Over the years, it worsened, and eventually, they stopped talking altogether. However, my father-in-law was considerate of me and often looked after Kevin. Spending time with my grandson feels like a dream. You must be busy with work too, right? Keep up the good work. He would say this, encouraging me. Ted and I both worked, and I often relied on my father-in-law, but I am grateful to him for willingly taking on the role. Yet, instead of showing gratitude, Ted remained silent. No matter how much I tried to mediate, he wouldn't listen. Moreover, as long as Dad leaves a proper will, that's all that matters. He seems to have saved up quite a bit. Hearing Ted laugh about this sent chills down my spine. I'm sorry, Father. Why would he say such things? Don't worry about it. I tried my best raising him, though. It must be my fault, surely. That's not true. Well, I still have some time left. I'll do my best until the end. My father-in-law tried to stay positive about his relationship with Ted. However, when Kevin turned 20, my father-in-law fell ill. When Kevin visited his grandfather's house as usual, he found him collapsed. An ambulance was called immediately, and after various tests at the hospital, he was given 6 months to live. Surprised and saddened by the sudden news, I went to the hospital, intending to treat him as normal, but surprisingly, he waved at me cheerfully. How are you feeling, Father? Oh, it's nothing much. The doctors are probably just exaggerating, he said lightly, though he should have received a detailed explanation from the doctor due to his wish. He's acting strong not to worry us. I felt tears welling up, but since he was smiling, I decided not to cry. With his agreement, treatment began. He had to be hospitalized long-term. Ted's attitude remained unchanged even after his father was hospitalized. I need to get him to make a will before he dies. Maybe I should contact a lawyer I know. Seeing Ted like this truly disgusted me. When I told him I would take care of his father, he was indifferent. Do whatever you want. Hearing that, I gave up expecting anything from Ted. Then, I moved some clothes and stayed at his father's house, which was conveniently located near both the hospital and my home. I lived a life shuttling daily between work, the hospital, and his father's house, carrying clothes for his father. Kevin, who had often been looked after by his grandfather, also visited daily after university or work. When cooking felt burdensome, we ate together at the house. During these meals, Kevin and I talked about various things like university, his part-time job, friends, and even his girlfriend. Wow, Kevin, you have a girlfriend now. Stop teasing me. I'm not teasing. Have you told Grandpa? No, I haven't told him. If you're okay with it, you should tell him. He would surely be happy. Huh? Why? Adults like to hear about these things. It makes them feel like their kids are growing up. That's weird. Kevin said this, but he didn't seem to mind the idea. I imagined how happy his grandfather would be to hear the news. Are you going to visit him tomorrow? I have work tomorrow, so I might not make the visiting hours. Maybe the day after. Is that so? I have to work that day. Could you take the change of clothes for Grandpa? You don't need to bring back the laundry. Okay, I got it. I'll get everything ready after we eat dinner. Thanks. As I watched Kevin's dependable actions, I felt proud. I believe this is because of the love we as parents couldn't give, which he received from others. The next day, I visited my father-in-law in the hospital. When I told him about Kevin, he smiled just as I had imagined he would. He's grown so much. Truly. It's all thanks to you, Father. No, you have done your best. Despite how Ted has been. Ted has tried, on his days off. While we were chatting like this, an unexpected visitor arrived. Hey, Dad. You haven't made a will yet, have you? I've brought a lawyer with me. Ted said this and introduced the person behind him. Unbelievably, he demanded that his father make a will right there and then. What are you saying? It's okay, Lucy. I felt anger at Ted's imperious behavior, and at the moment I raised my voice. My father-in-law quietly calmed me down. I couldn't say anything more. And just watched the situation unfold. Ted communicated the contents to his father, who filled them in accordingly. After confirming everything, he nodded, handed it to the lawyer. Ted seemed satisfied, and left the hospital alone, leaving everything else to the lawyer. As I puzzled over what to do. Excuse me. What is it? Please discard that. What? But I'll pay the fees myself. Or has he already paid you? Not yet. I thought so. He probably said I would pay. My father-in-law chuckled cheerfully. As I watched him, stunned. As a parent, I need to teach him a lesson. A month later. My father-in-law's condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away. Since the day Ted brought that lawyer, he hadn't visited at all. I handled all the funeral preparations by myself, and I was the chief mourner. Initially, I was going to put Ted's name, but Mom took care of him till the end, so it should be in her name. Encouraged by Kevin's words, many people attended the funeral with tears in their eyes. The attendees shared stories of the past with my father-in-law and both my son. And I couldn't hold back our tears as we shared the grief of his departure with many others. Despite informing him, Ted didn't show up at all. I gave up expecting anything from him. The wake, the funeral, the cremation, I handled them all smoothly with Kevin. I informed Ted that I would continue to offer prayers at my father-in-law's home for a while. But there was no reply from him. While I was spending time at my father-in-law's house. Hello. It was sudden. Of course, there had been no contact. I hadn't seen Ted since my father-in-law was hospitalized. Ted, whom I met after a long time, had changed his appearance. His previously unkempt hair was now fashionably cut and shaved at the nape. He wore no glasses, and his plain polo shirt was replaced with a brightly colored dress shirt. His pants were no longer baggy but were skinny, emphasizing his figure. And from behind him. Hello. A woman in a short dress above the knee, wearing a light-colored outfit, emerged. What? Suddenly you feel like seeing your own father, doesn't seem like it. I wouldn't do such a thing, I see, then, what are you here for? And who is this person? She's my girlfriend. We came to talk about the will and inheritance. I see. While holding arms with the woman, Ted made a call to the lawyer. I texted Kevin to explain the situation briefly and asked him to come. Soon after, both the lawyer and Kevin arrived almost simultaneously. After quick greetings, the lawyer, Ted, and his woman, Kevin, and I took our seats, and Ted began to speak. I'm marrying this woman, so we're getting a divorce. I'll pay you alimony. There's not a penny left, though? What? Well, maybe you should check what's in the will then. Hey. Read it out now. Ted, panicking, urged the lawyer to proceed. The contents of the will disclosed by the lawyer were: the monetary assets in the bank account shall be inherited by Lucy, my son's wife, and their son, Kevin. All the real estate properties, including land and houses registered in my name, shall be inherited by Lucy. Hearing this, Ted began to tremble violently. What does this mean? Exactly as you heard. It's your father's will. This is wrong. The will I had him make was supposed to leave everything to me. Why is everything being inherited by you? Hey. You're the lawyer, right? What's going on? Ted's anger, initially directed at me, now turned towards the lawyer. Naturally, from his perspective, it was inevitable since his request wasn't followed, but the gentleman reissued his instructions. You hadn't paid me any fee. And you mentioned he would pay, right? Therefore, I prioritized his request over yours. What have you been doing without telling me? It was the client's wish. I was merely adhering to confidentiality obligations, the lawyer stated calmly. Ted stumbled over his words, not having paid the fees himself. However, realizing he would not inherit anything, he directed his anger back at me. Why do you get everything? You're just a stranger. You thief. That thief took care of your father until the end. I also arranged his funeral. What were you doing while your father was suffering? You didn't even visit. That's irrelevant. He was my father. You should have valued him more then. It's too late to start shouting now. You stupid woman. In the heat of the argument, Ted raised his hand to strike me for the first time. I braced for the impact, closing my eyes tightly, but the blow never came. When I cautiously opened my eyes, my son had stepped between us and was holding Ted's arm. What are you doing, Dad? Let go. There's no way I'd let go when you're about to hit Mom. My son dragged Ted to the wall and pinned him there. I never hated you, Dad. But now I despise you. You mistreated Grandpa, cheated with another woman, and now you're about to hit Mom. What are you even doing? It's none of your business. Dad, since Mom moved here, you've been bringing that woman to our house, right? I knew about it. How did you know? I dropped by the house worried about you, and saw you two holding hands, looking cozy. I even have photos. Make sure you pay Mom a proper alimony. This can't be. Ted collapsed in despair. However, the woman was nowhere to be seen. It seemed she had run off after realizing the situation was bad. But with my son by my side and the lawyer's assistance, I managed to settle everything. As Kevin had pointed out, while I was busy caregiving, Ted had moved the woman in and lived together. He even told neighbors they were remarried. This helped to gather solid evidence of Ted's affair. We also found videos and photos of their intimate moments stored on Ted's computer. It turned out the affair had been going on not just since I started caregiving, but for 5 years. I wasn't devastated by the revelation. Instead, I quietly acknowledged that our marriage had ended long ago. I proceeded with the property division and filed for divorce while claiming alimony. Ted resisted initially, but when I threatened to discuss his infidelity with his company, he reluctantly agreed and paid up quickly. The affair partner had fled, but I extracted information from Ted, confronted her parents, and made them apologize to me. Her parents were furious about the affair, ensuring she would feel the repercussions at home. By the way, I moved to a small apartment, and the spacious house left by my father-in-law, due to its prime residential location, was transformed into a daycare and cafe. I quit my job to run the facility, aiming to support local parents raising their children, just as my father-in-law had supported and helped raise my son with me.